Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Titan Law. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Clara Mlambo, Liquid Telecoms Regional Chief Operating Officer for the Southern African region. Enjoy this quality conversation. Clara Mlambo, Liquid Telecoms Regional Chief Operating Officer for the Southern Africa region. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
I'm very excited to be talking to you, particularly in a month where we're celebrating the achievements of many women. You represent one of those women that we look up to. So we're looking forward to having this conversation with you, Clara.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully, I'll be able to inspire a few people here and there.
I have no doubt you will. Your life is an amazing life. So, Clara, after 21 years with British American Tobacco, in 2019, you decided to cross over and join Liquid Telecoms, like I said, as the regional chief operating officer for the Southern Africa region. That was a huge change, not just a change of career, but a change from the industry. And in so many respects, a new beginning. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I describe it as a cordless bungee jumping.
Aha.
Because when I moved from British American Tobacco, where I'd started as a management trainee, moved up the ranks 21 years later. So BAT was home for me. And but it was time for me to move in terms of my own personal growth. And the opportunity came within telecommunications. And I remember going for the interview with Wellington Makamure and trying to read up on telecommunications because I'm not a techie. And I said to him in the interview, you know what, Wellington, I tried to read up on Liquid. It's talking about LTE, it's talking about IP, it's talking about all these acronyms, and I actually got a headache trying to cram them. So you know what? I know nothing about telecommunications, but there's an opportunity and I can see where I can add value from a leadership perspective, because that is where my strength is. So this is what I can do for Liquid. And I remember the interview, so I said to him, this is what I can do for Liquid. I come from a place of driving for results. So the results have shown for themselves during the period that I was at BAT. You can look in the newspapers, the results were actually there. I'm very passionate about people, and the results are delivered through people. So I can add value in terms of people leadership. I'm very consumer centric. I'm very customer oriented because marketing was and is my background. So yes, I ended up in general management, but my functional expertise is actually marketing. I'm always challenging the status quo, which is something that you have to continuously be doing as a leader, and you're driving your teams. So I remember saying to him, so Wellington, I don't know anything about telecommunications, but I know how to drive a business and for us to get the results that we actually require.
Interesting. I mean, so what opportunity had you seen there, Clara?
In the telecommunication space?
Yes.
There's actually plenty of opportunity, and particularly, I think, because of COVID, there was opportunity prior to COVID, but telecommunications is one of those industries that has totally benefited from the disruption that COVID has caused, both from a business perspective, from a personal perspective in people's personal spaces, from an education perspective. So you'll find conversations that were being had about digital transformation, where it was a nice to have for companies. It became a necessity overnight. And that's where the opportunity actually came through. So we've seen huge growth within the industry as a result of the benefits that came through from people having to work from home, people having to work remotely, businesses having to gear themselves up as quickly as possible to be able to facilitate those type of working conditions.
Mm. Liquid Telecom is a subsidiary of Econet Global. Describe to me the basket of services that Liquid Telecom offers to corporates and individuals.
So Liquid as a group, we probably describe ourselves as a leading communications solutions provider right across Africa. We're present in over 13 countries, which is incredible given that we started in Zimbabwe and have grown over the years to cover 13 countries. Liquid has built Africa's largest independent fiber network. So we talk about from Cape to Cairo, which is over 70,000 kilometers. And we're embarking on some exciting projects from east to west right now. A huge focus on the DRC, which forms part of the patch that I'm currently working in. Liquid has state-of-the-art data centers in Kenya and in South Africa, and offers leading cloud-based services such as MS Office 365. And really, from an MS Office 365 perspective, we've seen huge growth because you can imagine with people working from home, working remotely, these products have become necessities rather than nice to have. And then in the case of Zimbabwe, we are the largest data, voice and internet provider in Zimbabwe. We offer wholesale fiber optic, satellite, and international carrier services. And then we're also in the retail space in Zimbabwe. So you'll know us under the banner of Zoll. Which is the best internet provider, particularly for personal use. And also
so we're using Zoll right now, just in case something happens,
and that's why the connectivity is perfect, Trevor. I'm telling you.
Right, beautiful.
There'll be no glitches.
Yeah,
there'll be no glitches. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's been actually an exciting change from tobacco and cigarettes to the telecoms industry. And I think going forward as well, Liquid is now moving towards this. It's actually transforming to not just being a telecoms company, but now into technology. So looking at an Internet of Things, really what solutions can we provide our B2B customers, which is just not connectivity. So really providing the full package. Looking at cybersecurity products, etc. So really moving into the next level.
I was just trying to imagine, Clara, what a day looks like to you. What a normal day looks like to you. I mean, you're taking care of how many countries? So what does a day look like for Clara? You walk into the office in the morning. Talk to us through your ordinary day.
So an ordinary day would start off with a morning meeting with one of the regional teams. We've got quite a number of projects running across the regions. So currently we're handling Zimbabwe, Angola, DRC, and we're looking at going into Mozambique from a Southern Africa region perspective. So a day in the morning starts off with a quick morning meeting with the sales team. Particularly for Zimbabwe and for Zambia, just to check in to see where we are in terms of the sales numbers and where we are falling behind and where they require support. So this is a very quick morning meeting across particularly those markets. And then we then go into project meetings because of the many projects that we are rolling out across the region. And those involve resources from the group who we'll be working with in terms of those projects. We're also doing internal IT transformation, so we do projects around that as well. And then dealing with the day-to-day Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Day-to-day Zimbabwe. So right. That also, you'll be looking at that in terms of did we get any money from the auction? If it's a Tuesday, if it's a Wednesday, you're looking at other aspects of the business. And then on top of that, and I know you haven't gotten into it yet, so I'm also the board chair for Zimtrade.
Yeah.
And I'm also the board chair for ABC Holdings. So depending on the week, if there are board meetings that are going to happen, maybe the next week, there will be some time spent in terms of just touching base with those various institutions just to make sure that we're on track.
Sounds like an exciting day, a hectic day. When does it start? When does it end?
It starts early in the morning because I'm actually an early morning person. So I tend around 6 o'clock to go through my emails in the morning. And then I like to get through all my emails so that I'm done with my emails. I've got children, so I'm a wife and a mother. And with children in this COVID environment, they're doing DigiSchool. So I need to make sure that by 7:30, the kids are up. They've clocked into school, because a number of times the school will write and say, your child didn't clock in, but you saw them in front of a laptop. And you're like, but how did you not clock in when you've got the best internet in the country, which is Zoll, and you've got all the devices, but you failed to clock in? But that's the nature of children. So it's just to make sure that the kids have actually clocked in. Then after the kids have clocked in, then I will just get ready for work. And that's how I start my day. The evening also, it depends. We can have meetings sometimes 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, depending on what's actually happening. I try to do my other board duties after hours, not so much during the working day. So normally around 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'll touch base with Alan Majuru from Zimtrade and find out, okay, are there any issues? Where do you need support from me? And then we discuss through whatever needs to be discussed, prepared for the minister, etc. So I tend to do that after 5 o'clock. And then the same thing with ABC duties as well. So I try not to mix them up as much as possible with my during the day liquid duties.
I've been reading around the challenges, Clara, that mothers are having from working at home with 2 or 3 kids that require the kind of attention that you are outlining right now. What has it been like to you? I mean, you've already hinted that this is something that you do. How hectic is it?
So for me, I think it's been easier because my kids are older teens. So I've got a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. So it's just making sure that they've started the day. After that, they're really on their own. And I've told them, you're adults. I mean, I can't be monitoring a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. But if I get a letter from the school that you have not been attending lessons, then we've got an issue that we need to sit down and discuss. But I know for parents, particularly mothers with younger children, it is a challenge, because if you've got a child in grade 1, grade 2, they can't self-learn. So as much as they're doing online learning, as the parent, you have to be literally there, going through every single task with them, checking understanding. So a lot of my female colleagues who've got younger children, I know that the homeschooling or digi-learning has been a huge challenge for them, and trying to balance that with work, because the work tasks don't change. Our stakeholders don't say because you're now multitasking, your deliverables are half. In fact, your deliverables actually even increase in this particular environment, and particularly given the sector that we are in, where we've actually got a lot of business and a lot of work that's coming through.
Let me take you back, Clara, to where you were born. Where were you born? And if you could relate to us memorable instances that, as you are being raised up, that have remained with you up to now.
Okay, so I was born in Rusape to Priska and Ernest Matienga. And at the time that, soon after I was born, I think I was about a year old, my father went to the UK for university. And then soon after that, he took my mother over. So I stayed with my grandmother. So that was like about 1976 during the war. So I stayed with my grandmother. So there's a story that my uncle, which is my dad's brother, claims that he cycled from Harare to Rusape and picked me up and then cycled me back. So I owe him for life. So everything has to be Bababnini. And he's like, you could have died if I had not put you on the back of my bicycle. So so I'm still paying for that. And then my parents then took me when I was about 5, and then I joined them in the UK. We came back in 1981. And by that time, I had 2 other siblings. So my two brothers. I learned at Borrowdale Primary School. So I did my primary school there. So I think one of the memorable situations that happened was when I was applying for high school, I went to Arundel. And at that point in time, I don't think my dad even knew what Arundel School was. So, and I'd heard about it obviously from the other students. So I applied for Arundel for Form 1. And I only applied for Arundel. We had no other plan B. And I got a place. And I remember by the time now I got a place, he He had now done his research, and he had realized that the school fees were quite high. And I remember when he saw my acceptance letter, he actually threw it out the car window.
Right.
And for some days, I thought I'm not going to Arundel because we can't actually afford it, because we hadn't done any homework. So I think from a lesson point of view, for me, I learned a few lessons from that incident. One is preparation and doing your research before you do anything, and the second one is always having a plan B, because we actually did not have a plan B for high school. So then I went to Arundel for the full 6 years. After that, I wanted to be a lawyer for reasons, I don't know. I thought I would give back to society by being a lawyer.
Before you go there, I want to ask you something. Yeah, do you, when you look back, do you think there are benefits that you got from being in a girls-only school? When you look back, what reflections do you have? What goes through your mind about having gone to a girls-only school?
So we used to call Arundel the pink prison, and I think it's still called the pink prison. So once you were in, you didn't come out. But the benefits of being in a girls-only school is that it allowed us to be us.
Mm-hmm.
So to develop into your authentic self without having to be another person, maybe for another sex or for boys. So, you know, like if you go to a mixed school, I think there's when you become more aware of boys, particularly in your mid-teens, in terms of how you're dressing, your hair, that has an impact. Whereas at Arundel, we just used to, a lot of Arundel school girls, even up to now, we barely wear makeup, to be honest with you, because we just grew up not wearing it. There was no need to impress anybody. We used to sit, I remember, on the ground, just on the drive where the cars used to go by, because we didn't have to worry about any of those things. So there was, we were given that opportunity to actually grow into our authentic selves when we were at Arundel. And I'm actually very, very grateful for that opportunity to actually be able to do that. I think one of the challenges, though, with Arundel was that when I came from Borrowdale School, I was a top athlete at Borrowdale School. So I was captain of the hockey team. I played in the first team tennis, first team netball. My grades were very good. I used to get prizes every single year. I was in the top class. Then I remember when we were leaving school, the headmaster said to us, "You are big fish in a small pond right now. Where you're going to become small fish in a big pond."
Big pond. Yeah.
And in fact, not even a big pond, small fish in an ocean. And I didn't really understand that until I actually got there. And when I got to Arundel, you almost had the best of the girls from all the schools. So you had your top girls from all the schools coming through to Arundel. So when it came to sporting competitiveness and academic competitiveness, you could easily find yourself average. Yet where you came from, you were at the top of the class. And I think that's what happened to a lot of us when we got to Arundel. We moved from being star students to being average students. And I think that took a bit of a knock from a confidence perspective, because you start doubting yourself. Because if you're always between number 1, 2, 3, then suddenly you're the bottom of the class. But you're the bottom of the class of brilliant girls. But you don't understand that at that point in time, that your whole class is brilliant. So your bottom of the class is not actually bottom in life. It's just bottom of that particular group of girls that you have. And I mean, I think even if you look at the Arundel results, if you take O-level, for example, year after year, they have like 100% pass rate. You know, so I felt average at Arundel, which even I know, even for when I started making decisions for schooling for my own children, I took that into consideration.
Right.
And I chose not to send my daughter to Arundel because I didn't want her to feel average. You know, I wanted her to excel in what she's going to do and not have that feeling of feeling average. Yet you knew you were clever, you know. So there was that self-doubt that would come in. And there were brilliant girls. You know, Trevor. There were girls who'd get 15 A's. Those days there were no A stars, but they'd get like 15 A's for O-level, and they'll be in the Zimbabwe hockey team, and it's the same girl. So she's busy traveling around the country, playing hockey, going to other countries, coming back, writing exams, getting all A's. And, it was quite mind blowing.
But you made it, and then you went to the University of Zimbabwe. I'm interested in your decision to do BBS, Bachelor of Business Studies. Do you remember what influenced you to do Bachelor of Business Studies?
So that was also another life curveball that came at me. So being at Arundel, you also, I think, you get sucked into the whole experience of learning with people with a lot of money. Where you're coming from also an average family. And sometimes you forget that you're also coming from an average family, and you start getting convinced that everybody's applying to go to university, to the States, to the UK, and you think that your parents have the financial capacity to actually also take you there. And I think one of the lessons for me was when I finished my A-levels, my dad had just started a new business. So, and I'm the oldest, I'm the first of 5 children, and he had 4 others in private school. So another one was at Peterhouse, another at Falcon, and so forth. So he didn't have the financial capacity to send me to university outside the country. And I didn't have enough points to get into the UZ. So when I said I wanted to do law, I was looking at law in America, it was all in my brain. I want to go to America, I want to go there. But the reality at home is that we didn't have the financial resources to send me at that point in time to those places. So that was, I think, one of the first key lessons of life, that life is going to happen. And when life happens, you have to quickly come up with a plan B. And so my plan B was I registered for a diploma in business administration, which was a part-time diploma. So I used to go over weekends, and I was one of 3 students who was not working. So it was mostly for professional people who would go in, like junior managers or people aspiring to junior managers. And you find that in the group, everybody was pretty much working at company cars, and the 3 of us, we were just students who were foot running. But it was a great experience because there are a number of students from then who are now very good friends and supporters of mine in industry, because we come back from way back. They know me from then when I was catching the combi buses to get to school for, and they used to give me lifts sometimes home because they had cars. So a lot of them used to give me lifts. Some of them even we sit on the same boards with some of them right now. So that's the amazing thing about life. So I did that, and then I also worked because my dad was a banker, and then I said, okay, I want to go into banking, into finance. So then I went to work for Agribank. It's now called Agribank, but it's just called AFC, Agricultural Finance Corporation.
Finance Corporation,
yeah. As a clerk in accounts payable. And that was also another completely different experience coming out of high school, because you're just sitting there and you're processing invoices. And there's a way that it was done. We'd sit on a long table with the supervisor. I remember her name was Mai Moraka. So Mai Moraka would be there at the end of the table, and they were all in a place. And each time the document comes, you've got your role in terms of what you do and what you look at on the document as it's coming. So it was like kind of like a production line of payment documents. So I did that for about a year and a bit. And so I finished my diploma. I then reapplied to the UZ to do business studies, but now as a mature student. So that's why I say life happens, and when it happens, you just have to quickly get up and move on to the next plan. So I then got in as a mature student. Right. So that's how I ended up at the UZ. But what I found about that experience was that it really helped me once I was at UZ, because a lot of the material that we were now doing under the degree, I'd actually covered under the diploma. So it allowed me to have a lot of fun whilst I was at university, without having to really stress myself and study, I think, as much as my other colleagues who were coming straight from high school, because they were seeing a lot of this material for the first time. And I remember my mother couldn't even understand how I go clubbing so much, and then I still pass.
You were cruising.
Yes, I was cruising, and my dad would say to her, as long as she's passing, I'm okay. I'm okay. And my mom would say, but societal expectations, girls shouldn't be going out that much. The other girls are not going out, which was not true because we're all going out with them. But but that was the mother thing. And my dad would say, as long as her grades are up, then she can continue to go. There were times where I noticed that he'd come in and he'd say, it has been said that you're going out too much. And you're like, who has said we're going out too much?
Where's the witness?
Yes, because like a boardroom session would have happened, and you'd be told, go tell them. So I think what I learned from there was that I could multitask. I could have a lot of fun and still do what I needed to do, which was and I came out with a 2-1 degree class, so which was very good. I had distinctions in a number of subjects, and I had a lot of fun in university, so I was able to have fun doing what I needed to do, and that's actually one of the principles I've carried through in my life and even in my work, which is that fully understanding what the mission is, but having fun whilst doing it. Yeah.
So that's interesting, Clara, because people should have fun at university, isn't it? Because if you don't have fun at university, life happens when you start working, and when you look back, you regret it. Is that your sense?
So you should have fun, but it's a transition. And I think it's a transition for many people because you're coming from home where you are being supervised.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have this freedom. And a lot of university students don't know what to do with that freedom. And that's why you then find that in the first year, a number of people start falling back who were actually brilliant in varsity, who got 15 points or whatever, how many points, the A stars and so forth. But then when they get to university, they start struggling because they were in high school, they were, I'll call it cramming, where they are studying like 24 hours under very strict study regimes. And suddenly they don't have that discipline anymore or that environment anymore. And then they struggle in university. So yes, you should have fun, but you should always be mindful of why you're there, which is come out with a degree.
And then the MBA, did you do the MBA whilst you at BAT?
Yeah, so let me get before I get to the MBA. So the MBA, so we finished university, and then BAT came to do a they go around scouting for
recruiting.
Students. So they came, filled out some applications, but at that time I was still very much on the finance track. So I'd gotten a job at First Bank, where I started working as a graduate training, which was a great experience as well. But I'd applied for BAT as well, and I applied to do finance in BAT as a finance MT. I made it to the assessment centers. Now, this assessment center was absolutely amazing, Trevor. It was 2 days on Matapa.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the assessment center. And it was conducted by the leadership team of BAT, from the managing director and his direct reports. So they were the ones who were the assessors, because they believed so much in the graduate training program that whoever they found, those would be the future leaders of BAT. So they would invest their time in looking for those future leaders. And I remember at the time they were looking for our group, they were looking for 6 candidates, but they said, if we find nobody, then we're not going to take anybody who doesn't meet our criteria, because that's how much we believe in this program. So that's actually what happened. And when we went to the assessment center, and this is, I think this is a very important point, especially for people who go for assessment centers, is that when we went for the assessment center, the one that I went to, there were about 8 of us, eight candidates. And so you go for all these exercises, presentations, tray exercises, all sorts of things. And then after dinner, all the candidates, except for 2, myself and another, they all went to their rooms. And the reason why they went to their rooms, I believe, is that for some, it was the first time to stay in a hotel. For others, it was to actually go and prepare for the next day. But they always say that assessment centers, you really cannot prepare for the assessment center because you don't know what the tasks are going to be, right? So myself and another lady, we stayed at the dinner table with the assessors. And we talked, we drank with them until about 2-3 in the morning, right? And then we went to bed.
Is this the Arundel? Culture coming in here?
No, I don't even know between Arundel UZ. I'm not even sure. I think it was like a combination of the two, like Arundel meets UZ. So anyway, so we sat there with the assessors until about 2-3 in the morning, just drinking and talking. But you know what the assessors were doing during that period?
Assessing you.
Exactly. They were assessing us. Do you know where the other candidates were?
Sleeping or in the bar.
Exactly. They were sleeping. Do you know who got the only 2 places that were given that particular year?
The guys that were drinking with the assessors.
Exactly. The guys were drinking with the assessors because the assessors got to know us. And then also they were able to see that there was a culture fit with the business because BAT is it sells cigarettes, and it sells cigarettes in bars, beer halls, nightclubs. So you'll be up many nights actually promoting and selling the product, but you'll be expected to be in the office at 8 o'clock. So the fact that we were still able to, for 2 nights, keep up with the assessors until 2 or 3 in the morning, be at breakfast at 7 o'clock, and go through all the exercises during the day, as fresh as the other guys who had actually been sleeping. And that, I think, really helped us in terms of getting the job. So for me, that was a huge life lesson in terms of assessment centers, what assessors look for, and so forth.
Interesting. And then you then get appointed as a management trainee rather, and you last with BAT for 21 years. What a story. Talk to me about what made you stay at BAT, having started as a management trainee.
Okay. So when I then got the job at BAT, I remember my last interview with Archie Sadza, who was the managing director at the time, and he said, and I said to him, I've been offered the marketing management training, but I'd actually applied for the finance management training. And he said, what, when we looked at you and when we assessed you, you had a better fit for marketing than you had for finance. And I remember saying to him, but I hardly did any marketing subjects in university. And he said, don't worry, we will teach you everything you need to know about marketing. And for sure, Trevor, they lived up to it. Wow. Over the 21-year period, I learned every aspect of marketing, consumer marketing, research, trade marketing, distribution. I did roles in literally every aspect of marketing that you can think of, and across country. So we finished the management training program. I got appointed into the management training program. And then about a year and a half into the appointment, I was then sent to Kenya on an assignment, on a one-year assignment. And I always talk about, when I talk about women going to the top, I always talk about the role that male play in that, because most of the key decision makers, even up to now, are men. And men must understand the role that they play in bringing women up into these leadership positions. So I was actually very, very fortunate because there was a team of men over the years, many teams of men that have really rallied around me. And they're the ones who've actually sent the elevator down because I've actually never reported to a female line manager. So it's the males that have been sending the elevator down for me and bringing me up. So anyway, it was Roy Masamba, Joe Mganda, and Kennedy Mandevani. So they were the 3 gentlemen who then saw my potential and said, okay, we want to send her to Kenya. But it's such a process to get her to Kenya because we were part of a region. They would have needed approval from the regional director. So they decided to do cowboy style. And they just spoke quietly with Kenya and they made an arrangement. And they sent me to Kenya. Now, when I got to Kenya, there was a little bit of organizational politics that happened between my line manager and his line manager. And there was this huge project that I was working on, which my line manager was supposed to go and present to the team in the UK. And his boss then decided to send me to go and present. We were doing a market entry into Sudan. So it was presenting the whole marketing plan and also the joint venture and getting approval from the team in the UK to actually go and do that. So for me, that was a big one. I was young. I was entry-level management, but I learned a number of things from there. And the first one was that my line manager, his name was Sam Kalini. Sam was having political issues with his boss, but he never let it interfere with how he dealt with us and how he treated us. And when his boss decided to sideline him and send him to the UK, he never let them play out to us. And even though he had now been sidelined to go to the UK, he was a true leader because he then sat down with me and he helped me build the presentation. He took me through dry runs. We'd go through it. And he wanted me to succeed despite what was happening to him. Because another leader will say, you know what, I'm going to sabotage this person.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that. And for me, that was a huge leadership lesson that you as a leader might be going through things, but you should not take it out on your team members. You should continue to support your team members and let your team members focus on what they need to focus on. So you absorb the pressure and you let them focus on what they need to actually focus on. So that was an amazing life lesson. So I went to the UK. I presented in the UK. I presented very, very well in the UK. And what was also going on in the background at that particular point in time, I was pregnant with my first child, and I was having a very, very difficult pregnancy. So when I didn't declare this to the company at the time that I was flying to the UK. And the reason why I didn't declare it is that there's always this thing that as a woman, if you say that I'm not well, then they say, look at her. See, that's what women do. And I didn't want to be stereotyped like that. So I said, you know what, I'm my first trimester, and I only have to declare to the company that I'm pregnant anyway after the first 12 weeks. It was very difficult. And I remember going to the UK. I actually had to go and get injections as I was flying out to the UK. And I went to the UK. I literally presented from the presentation, basically in the office collapse. I mean, not in the office, in the hotel room, just collapsing because, you know, you're going through your pregnancy and everything else. But I didn't let that pull me down or play any role in my performance. Anyway, so I performed. Now, the problem with me performing was that one of the area director that Kennedy, Joe, and Roy had bypassed to send me to the UK, he then went to the UK. And he was told when he was in the UK that there's this brilliant girl from Zimbabwe who came to present. So he's like, what you talking about? I didn't approve, because international trips had to be approved by the area director. And he's like, I didn't approve any trip for anyone from Zimbabwe to come to the UK. And they said, no. She works in Kenya. So she was presenting on Sudan. And he's like, really? That is news to me. So anyway, I find out years later that he then came back from the UK and he called these three gentlemen and he really took them to task and said to them, you know, what you did was unorthodox and blah, blah, blah. So he really took them to task. But that was also an example of, as a leader, if you believe in someone and you all put all your efforts around that person, sometimes even at an expense to yourself, that is leadership. You know, and even when I came back, they never even mentioned anything about the story, that they were actually almost fired, to be honest with you, Trevor, what they actually did. And I only found out about it years later, that we were saying, I remember that time you went to Kenya and you're just supposed to go and learn and then you overperformed, you know, your overperformance.
We nearly got us into trouble.
Almost got us into trouble. You know, so I think there are lots of lessons there in terms of supporting your team, which I've taken through, and I really support my team members, particularly in terms of their development. Anyone who shows potential. So then I came back on a.
There's a point there that I don't want to miss, which you raised by you're pregnant,
Yes.
You're taking medication. Because you don't want to be treated in a different manner because you're pregnant, because you're a woman. Talk to me about a similar situation. I read the thing about women find that crying at work sometimes can attract negative reactions, but men find that crying is actually a good thing in the workplace. What's been your experience about that?
I can only speak as a woman, but what I can say is that for women, the bar is higher than it is for men, Trevor. So because the bar is that much higher, any sign of weakness that is seen is used as an excuse. That you see, the reason why she didn't hand in the report on time is because she's pregnant. You know, meanwhile, you didn't hand in the report on time because maybe you didn't have the right information. You know, there's information that you were still waiting for from a man, by the way, that you were still waiting for, but therefore you're not able to hand in that particular report. So everything, the pregnancy is used as an excuse
Yeah.
That, you know, she didn't do this because she was pregnant. She didn't do this. So you tend to, which is very, very unfortunate. And the reason why it's very unfortunate is because when you are pregnant, your body is going through so many changes. And you've got children, so you've seen it through your wife, I'm sure. You're tired, you're moody, you need to go to the toilet a lot, you're very, very tired, you're not sleeping at night because you can't find a comfortable position, you've got morning sickness. So you're going through a whole lot of changes in terms of your body, but you're still expected to perform. At that higher level, you know, when you're at work. And then also the other thing is when you're going through all of these, the pregnancies and the children, once you've gone through the pregnancy, you've also got the child, a baby that needs to be taken care of. You need to go and breastfeed. You know, it's a toddler. You know, you need to take them to nursery school. You're the one who has to be there, pick them up at all these odd times. But your male colleague is focusing 100% on his career. He's going for his classes for ACA, if you're in finance. He's doing his MBA. He's doing all of these things. So, and I always say the playing field is therefore very, 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 very uneven, because you've all finished university at the same time. My biological clock is ticking. I've gotten married. The expectations from a family perspective that I start a family sooner rather than later. I remember I was about 27 and my grandmother was saying, you know, shall we start brewing the traditional beer for you?
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing any children coming through yet. And I've been only married for 2 years, and we didn't want to start a family. Immediately. Yeah, family immediately, you know. But already society is expecting you to be starting that family, but also your biological clock is ticking. So you're the most fertile in terms of having children, and your body is the most ready in terms of having children when you're in those 20s, in those 30s. But that's where you're trying to go up the corporate ladder at the same time. And you're competing with Trevor, who, you know, his wife has made lunch for him in the lunchbox. You know, he's burning the midnight oil. He's studying. He's going to the focus groups, the study groups that you have to go to, even if you do your MBA. So even in between, so I came back and I was pregnant, and when I came back, I was up for a promotion. So I've been told that because I performed so well, we will be promoting you. And the person who I was replacing, he had actually left and he'd already gone to South Africa, a guy, and he had been promoted to go to South Africa. So I was taking over from him as head of brands. But I was then told that, but we'll give you 3 months to act so we can see if you can actually do the role, which is very interesting because I performed well, I arrived, but now you need 3 months to assess me. The other guy who I'm taking over from, who was going to another promotion, he went straight into his promotion. And I think these are the challenges we face as women in the workplace, because we have to prove ourselves beyond reasonable doubt, in some cases, that you can do the role. Yet a guy does get the promotion, but he might be at 60, 70%. But and I was reading Sharon Sandberg over the weekend, and they made a very interesting point. And they said that women are promoted on their historic and current performance, whereas men are promoted on their future performance. Yeah, and I saw that live. That's what happened live.
You've experienced that. Now, yes, what do we need to do, Clara, to change that environment? This has been your lived experience. Like you're saying, you get pregnant, you're competing with Trevor, whose lunchbox is prepared and is doing all those kind of issues. What needs to be done, Clara, in the workplace and as far as society is concerned, to ensure that that lift that you were talking about goes up and down, caring women more often than caring men?
You have to take a chance on women. So you don't have to wait for them to show you their 100 or 120%. So the same way that a man at an 80%, a chance is taken on the man at 80%. So take the chance on the woman at the 80%. But they always start saying that, but if I take the chance on her, she's a mother. So she won't be fully committed. She will have other commitments. But let me be the decider of that. Let me see how I'm going to work my life to be able to deliver to everything that I have to deliver. Don't make the decision for me. And in most cases, the decision is made for me by a man who has not gone through what I've gone through.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. That's huge. So you did Kenya, you've done South Africa, you have been based in South Africa for a while within the marketing space. Tell over this 25 years in marketing, Clara, were there any major breakthrough in terms of new brands coming in, or new marketing strategies that came through that you can recollect from either any of those markets that you operated in, that exciting stories that you can share with us?
No, we had lots of exciting stories. So on the distribution front, so when I moved across to South Africa, and this is now, I think, another example of men taking chances on women. So when I came back from Kenya, I was then promoted. I did the role, and then I got pregnant with my second baby. And when I was pregnant with my second baby, my boss said to me, "You're going on maternity leave. What we would like to do is to take you out of your current role, right? And we want to bring somebody else." By then I was marketing director. We want to bring in somebody else as marketing director who will assume full responsibility for the role as you go on maternity leave. When you come back from maternity leave, we will not have a job for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to look for something for you. Trust us.
Right.
Yeah, which is hard to trust as well. But they said trust us. So when you come back, you could come back. We'll put you in projects, whatever it is, and also be easier for you as you're transitioning, from maternity leave to coming back to the workplace. Now, what had happened in between was I started my MBA after I got married. And then I moved to Kenya, I had to suspend it, and then along the way. So now when I was on my last maternity leave with my daughter was now 15 years old, then I extended my maternity leave with annual leave so I could do my dissertation because that's what was outstanding. So now I was on maternity leave and I was doing my dissertation. And whilst I'm doing my dissertation, I'm on maternity leave, and I don't have a role to go back to because we've agreed with the company that I will not be going back into my previous role. And somebody actually had come from Kenya to actually take over from me. So there was already a marketing director in situ. And I got a phone call whilst I'm on maternity leave. And Gary's name was Gary Fagan. So Gary calls me and says, would you like to come to the office just for us to have some career discussion? So I'm like, okay, cool. And he said, if you can't come to the office, I do understand your maternity leave. I can come out to you and meet you somewhere. So I said, no, let me come to the office. And I remember saying to my husband, I've been called to the office to discuss career. And I think that there's a move in play. So he's like, no, go. Let's hear what they have to say. So I went there. And he said, I've got a job. We've got a job for you in South Africa. We don't know if you want to take it up because you are on maternity leave. You'd go, once you're out of your extended leave, you then start your job in South Africa. So you don't come back to this business unit. You'll go straight to South Africa from your extended maternity leave. But you do have an option not to go because we do understand that you've just had a baby. So I went back home, discussed with my husband, and that was in 2006. In 2006, that's when we're going towards the Zimbabwe 2007, 2008. So it was not a hard discussion to actually have at the time that, we've got an opportunity to relocate to South Africa, given what was happening in the country at the time. It was a good opportunity. So we took the opportunity. And that's now, I think, a company taking a chance on you because you're on maternity leave and they're saying, we're going to support you and we're going to send you to South Africa. So I went to South Africa with a 3.5-year-old baby boy, a son, and a 4.5-month-old baby, and my husband, the four of us as a family unit. And that was quite an experience because I learned there that you need a support network as a working man. Because my husband was now doing his MBA, and we stayed at a place called Somerset West, and he was doing it at a UCT, which was a 60-kilometer drive out. So he'd leave at 6 in the morning, and then he'd then do focus study groups, and come back at about 8 o'clock at night. So I had to do the school run. So I'd literally leave the office at 12 o'clock, try pick up my son, drop him off at school. And one of the mothers who happened to be married to one of the guys that I worked with used to see me in the schoolyard. And then she stopped me the one day. She said, you know what, Clara, I have to drive past your house every day to go home. Can I pick your son up from school for you every day? You know, this is someone who I did not
Wow.
know that was, right?
Wow.
But I also realized I needed help.
Mm.
And I said, no, it's fine. Thank you very much. Kathy Finch collected my son from school every day for 3 years.
Wow.
Every single day. She used to take him for birthday parties. She used to buy the presents. She used to read all the school letters, then tell me in the evening that you need to take note of this. I've done so much on this, and so forth and so forth. And what I learned there is that as a person, you must also be aware of what's happening to people around you. And that people who may not need help, who don't know that they need help, they don't know how to ask for help, they don't know who they can ask for help, but you're there and you have the capacity to help. So don't wait to be asked at times. You know, just put your hand up and give that help. So I always say to Kathy, I've got no way of thanking you, because what you did for me for those 3 years is you allowed me to work and to shine at the office without having to worry about the pickup and drop-offs for my children.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only way I can pay you back is by paying it forward. Is when I see another parent in such a situation, I will always make sure that I help.
Have you paid it forward, Clara?
All the time, all the time. And a lot of parents actually sometimes ask me and they say, oh, you know, you've got such a generous heart. You know, you've done this. And I said, you don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from a place where I was a recipient. And because I was a recipient, I understand the value of paying forward as a parent.
The space that you were operating in, I mean, tobacco marketing, distribution, and sales can be an easy thing, because you're facing tailwinds and headwinds all at the same time. Talk to me about how you manage that space where you are dealing with, you know, the tobacco is a health hazard. On the other hand, it's a very lucrative commodity. There's illicit trading of tobacco. How did you navigate that space as a working mother and as a working professional?
I think as a working professional, it's an interesting space to be in, because I think, as you rightly said, on the one hand, it's a sin. On the other hand, it's a rewarding product. You know, so, and I think that's the conflict that some governments actually face with the actual product itself. But depending on which countries that you worked in, so a number of the countries, particularly in East Africa, they had very draconian legislation around the marketing and distribution of the product itself. And once you start going to Europe, it gets even worse. So it was, how do you market in such an environment? And how do you distribute in such an environment? And you had to move away from all traditional marketing. So you don't do TV, you don't do radio. And if you don't do TV, radio, newspaper, you know, the traditional media that you know, that you're part of, then how do you get to the consumer? And so it was really a lot about the consumer experience. And so we'd spend a lot of time in these spaces where our consumers would be, where our customers would be, and actually engaging with the customers, engaging with the consumers. And that goes back, I think, also to when I told you when we got recruited, where we were up the whole night at the assessment center. Yeah. So that's the environment now that we operated in, because you have to be there at all of those touch points. And it was called below the line touch points. So operating in the space that the consumer and the customer actually operates in. It's a lot more work, because you don't just produce one ad and then you beam it out to 100,000 people. You have to go and find those 100,000 people almost one by one, with all the activities that you actually have to do. But you then get to really understand the environments that you're actually working in. I would go from one country to the next, but I would see parts of a country that a local person has never seen, because I'd have to go to where that consumer is smoking that stick of cigarette in Binga, you know. But a Zimbabwean, a typical Zimbabwean, I never been to Binga before. You know, and that was the same for every country that I actually worked in. I'd go to the deepest parts of those countries, and we really got to get to know the country, got to know the product, got to know the consumers. And we had a lot of fun, to be honest with you, whilst we did it. And what that also did is, from a team perspective, it meant that we spent a lot of time with each other outside of the 8 to 5 ours, and we became more friends and family than colleagues.
So the other thing that I found difficult to wrap my head around was you've experienced in Zim, in Botswana, in Zambia, in Kenya. What would you say is required to be a successful manager within a multiplicity of markets, as it were? What would be the key ingredients to make you successful in those markets, not in just one market? Because some of us are used to working in one market, but you have had responsibilities where you are responsible for quite a number of markets.
So I think the first one is people. Because when you go into each and every single one of those environments, you're meeting new teams, new customers, new different languages. And so I think you have to take the time to spend and understand the people that you're going to work with. So for me, people was always the priority. So I'd get there, find out about Trevor, who's Trevor, about your family, because people want to be seen and people need to be valued. And once they understand that you see them and you value them, they then support you. And particularly if you're going into a new environment, because if you make the mistake of going into a new environment and you disrespect the people, they will disrespect you and you'll be out of that environment very, very quickly, Trevor.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the first thing was understanding the people, and then the second one is understanding. And so I had a boss, a mentor. So he was one of the 3 guys who sent me to Kenya, Joe Mganda. And what Joe always said was, he always said that when you go into a new space, don't behave as if the people before you were doing nothing. And I've carried that through life, because it's very easy to go into a new country and then find everything that's wrong, and then say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, so that you can also then shine when you are correcting those wrongs. But don't build your career off the back of somebody else by trying to bring somebody else down or a group of people down. Go in, understand why things are the way they are. And sometimes you find that they're actually very valid reasons why things are the way they are. In fact, most cases. And once you understand that, and you also gain the trust of the people that you're working with, because they know that you're not coming there to pull them down. They see that you're coming to be part of a solution with them. Then because you're part of that solution with them, it's very easy to work within those environments. So to be honest with you, I'd say that the number one thing is all centered around the people and how you treat the people when you actually get to those environments.
And the other thing, you say that you've spent 7 years within the MD and CEO roles, and you say that your approach is entrepreneurial in one of these environments. Can you unpack that for us? What does that mean?
Okay, so in terms of entrepreneurial, I think one of the values that we were taught at BAT was act like an owner. So the business is, yes, it's got its shareholders, but you have been given the privilege and the position to act like you are the owner of that business. So yes, you need to align to the global regional requirements, but when you come to work, act like an owner. So in every decision that you make, you say, okay, fine, if this was my business, how would I do this? So if this was my business, how would I do this? And for me, that was that entrepreneurial spirit, which we were able to then filter down to literally almost everybody in the business, where you say to someone that just because you've got a budget doesn't mean you have to spend the money. It should be spent wisely in the best way possible, but you don't have to spend the money. There are other ways of achieving the same objective without necessarily spending the full budget. If you have and I'd say to the guys, for example, I'll give you an example. When we were at BAT, we used to have targets for performance for bonus, and the factory guys would always shout at the sales guys and say, "You're not selling enough, and therefore you are jeopardizing our target, our performance bonus, which we get at the end of the year." And so what I do is, and this is both in Zambia and Zimbabwe, was literally every quarter shut down the factory. Everybody goes to sell, even the guys in the factory. And what that would do is that it would foster team spirit. So instead of having to pay an agency for teamwork and so forth, we'd actually go in competitively into, and we go like Harare, for example, a team would go to Budiriro, a team would go to Quads, and a team Kumfakwas, Chituriza, Epworth, doing various tasks and activities. Then we'd come back and sit and regroup. This is a whole company. And then each team would then present that, okay, I had a sales target of this amount. This is how much I sold. I was supposed to put up this amount of material in the market. I was supposed to do this. So you make it competitive. But then what would then happen now is that because the factory guys now understood the challenges that the marketing guys would face, if they are at home drinking in their local pub and they see there's no cigarettes in the shop, they'd actually now call the sales guy and say, you know what, I'm in Chakuti beer hall, and they're out of stock of our product. And then the sales team will they go. So everybody now is acting like owners in terms of trying to solve the problems of the business.
And you were CEO, managing director of Zimbabwe Stock Exchange quoted company. Am I right at that particular time you were the only woman leading ZSC quoted company?
No, so Grace was there.
Okay.
When Grace was there when I arrived. So there was Grace and myself for
that's Grace Mradzikwa.
So Grace Mradzikwa was there, and then Rose was there from, I think, Turnal at some point in time, and then Grace then left to take up her new role. But I think what I found with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is that you've got about 63 companies on the ZSC counter. And even when I'm talking about Grace, Rose, you're talking 3 people out of 50-something companies. And these are your supposed blue chip companies. And when your blue chip companies of 60-something, only 3, or like as we speak today, I think it's only Precious who's leading. It's like there's only 1 or 2 slots for a woman at a time on the ZSC. It's like an unspoken, I call it the boys club rule. So once we've got more, then the boys kind of get scared that, the women are going to come and take over. We're not coming to take over. Trevor, there's enough space for all of us. So I was 1 of 2 or 3 at any point in time, which is sad, which is, I think, very sad.
What needs to be done in your view, Clara, to sensitize the society, to sensitize the boardrooms that this is an important thing, that gender diversity is key?
I think the boys club has to stop talking and start acting. Mm-hmm. And I say that with all sincerity, Trevor, because the key decision makers in the businesses are men, right? There are very few women in those leadership roles where they make such decisions. So the key decision makers are men. And a lot of discussions have been had over the years about gender diversity. I mean, I think for the last 20 years that I've been in business, 25 years, the talk has always been about gender diversity. So if 20-something years later, we're still sitting with 1 woman on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. I was even looking at the statistics, for example, for the banking industry. And for the banking industry, I think 52% of employees globally are females, right? 38% of that, I think, are in management positions. About 16% or so are in the leadership executive committees. This is at a global level. So the funnel starts narrowing as you get to the top. In the case of Zimbabwe, there are, I think, about 17 banks or so under the Bankers Association of Zimbabwe stable. And of those 17 financial institutions, only 1 has a female, which is Dr. Sibongile Moyo.
Yeah.
Just 1. And before that's Nedbank. And before Dr. Sibs, it was Dr. Charity Junior at Nedbank as well. And in the last probably, say, 10 years or so, I think Dr. Charity Junior was probably the only female managing director of the financial institutions. So before even going to ZSC, then if you go into, for example, the manufacturing sector, manufacturing sector, if you look at the survey results, it moves between 9 to 13% of of the CEOs being women.
Mm.
You know, but I think it's probably sitting at about 9% right now, but it moves between 9 to 13%. But it's we're 40 years down the road in terms of independence. But we keep talking about the same things, and it's not about studies anymore because there are enough studies that have been done.
We know what the situation is.
Sorry?
I said we know what the situation is. We know the numbers.
We know what the situation is. We know what needs to be done. We need to send the elevator down for these women and provide them the necessary support. So we know what needs to be done. And that's why I say that we need to stop talking and start acting, put our money where our mouth is. Because I find that generally it's nice. Our conversation, we need more women, we need more women, we need more women. But after that, that's where the conversation ends. There's no action. Because if there was action, we'd see the results.
Is there a responsibility on the, so you say the boys club needs to do something. Is there anything that the girls club ought to do to bang the tables, stand on the tables, do something to ensure that there's movement here?
So ultimately, the decision makers are still the men. You see, we can't run away from that. So when you look at the funnel, for example, when I was giving you one about the banking industry, where you've got 52% globally being women, 38% in management positions. What then happens between the 38% to the 16% who are in the executive committee roles? It means that the pull is not going up. And the question is, why is that pull not going up? Because they're not being provided with those opportunities to actually take over the roles. In most cases, and we've had the conversation where women are based on historical performance, the men are based on future performance. Networking is a big part of it, and I speak to a lot of women about the importance of networking. That it's important to perform, and you must perform, but you also need to network. But the challenge with the networking is, who are you networking with? You're networking with men. And when you're networking with men, there are now cultural, systematic challenges that sometimes come through because the networking happens in the evenings. And you find that a lot of the women, the husbands may not be comfortable with them going out to network with other men in the evenings. So it's then finding those platforms that women can network safely without then having challenges at home within their marriages as to why were you at this function with so and so. I was seen standing next to Trevor. It becomes a social issue that Clara Mlambo was standing next to Trevor. Meanwhile, I was just saying hi Trevor at a function, and I was moving on to the next conversation. So networking is key, but I think there's still work that needs to be done in terms of how do we bring this networking platform in such a way that it accommodates some of the sensitivities that women have when it comes to networking.
Clara, you've been very successful, but I want to press you now and ask you to be vulnerable. Are there moments in your career when you look back at BAT, the 21 years, 25 years plus, where you failed, and you think there are lessons from that failure that you want to share with our viewers? Because I think sometimes we learn from our hard knocks. We learn when we fall and we pick ourselves up. Do you have those lessons to share?
Oh yeah, definitely, plenty. I think failure, Trevor, is a part of life. But what's important is what you do with that failure. John C. Maxwell's got a book called Failing Forward. So it's what are the lessons that you take from the failure. Success has many fathers.
Yeah.
And failure is an orphan. And when you fail, you tend to find yourself all alone and all by yourself. And you get thrown under the bus, even by some people who shouldn't be throwing you under the bus. So I've had many such instances in my career. In business, you have to take risks in terms of what products you bring to the market, what changes you're going to make to products within the market, to prepare the products, to be future ready, etc. So I remember I was working on a big project in Kenya. Actually, it was actually for Uganda. And we done all the research, and the research told us go. And we produced, we went into market, and then the consumers told us get out. So we had to get out. We tried to, work in different forms, and then we had to get out. So it cost quite a bit. We had to do quite a bit of write-offs. But I think the lessons there was, yes, we did the preparation, but even when you do preparation, preparation can only take you so far. When you go into the real life environment, there are a whole lot of dynamics that are not part of the preparation environment that come into play. Life happens in the real life environment. And so the lesson then is that when you fail like that, what do you do as a leader? Do you blame your team for the failure, or do you take responsibility for the failure? The failure can be due to human error. It can be due to it just was going to fail. But my lesson and what I've learned through life is that when I'm leading a team and we fail, I will take full responsibility for the failure. And I will then quickly try to come up with mitigating solutions with the team in terms of, okay, we failed. How do we get out of this? In some instances, it's a complete write-off. In other instances, there are things that you can salvage along the line. In other instances, there are learnings that you're going to take, which you're going to feed into another process going forward. But you have to, as the leader, stand up and say, you know what? I take responsibility for this, because I've been in many situations where failure has been an orphan, and we found ourselves by ourselves, where our leaders who we were working with, and it's not even BAT, this is in other parts of my life, where you found yourselves all alone, and with very little support.
Now to our favorite part of the show, which is books, Clara. We absolutely love books on this show. Do you have time to read? I mean, you get up in the morning, you're looking at emails and the kids, you're sharing boards, and you're taking things until the end of the day. Do you create time to read at all?
Yes, I do read. So, but I haven't read like in the last maybe 3 or so months. The last few books that I read was Born a Crime by Trevor. Remember when you called me and I said, "Why is it Trevor not calling me?" Like, I received Trevor coming.
Right.
Yeah. So Born a Crime, I find it's a very interesting book, because you learn so much about the dynamics of what is happening in South Africa, but from a humorous perspective. So
hilarious book.
Yes, but there are lots of hard lessons in the book, but in a very humorous way that actually keeps you reading. So that is one of the last ones I read. Becoming by Michelle Obama. Becoming, by Michelle Obama. I think that's actually a very, very key book. And I think one of the things she says in the book, and how she came up with the title, she says that because we're always evolving, so you never reach your final destination. You just continue to evolve. So that's why we're becoming. So that's why she actually chose that title. And it's a very apt title as well. And I love John C. Maxwell's books. So I read a lot of John C. Maxwell books, and I'd recommend those to young leaders, because they're easy reads. I find the Steve Covey books a bit, small fonts, a bit of harder reads. But for young leaders, John C. Maxwell's got some fantastic books, some fantastic quotes. The one that I saw this weekend that really resonated was, he said, in life, you should be a river, not a reservoir. So you should keep flowing. And for me, that really described me, because I'm the type of person, from all the things that I'm, that we've discussed, what I've done in my life, I'm just always moving and, finding what's the next thing, how do I grow myself? How do I grow the people around me? So I actually found that very apt, that, in life, you must be a river, and you must not be a reservoir, keep flowing. 2 weeks in November, I found very exciting. when I read it. So I really enjoyed that. Then I think from a development book, there are two books that really also resonated with me. One is called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And then the other one is 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I don't know if you read that one.
Yes, I got it right at the back there.
Yes. Yeah. So the first law is never outshine your master. And so I really learned from that you know what, I should always make sure that my line managers, I'm there to support them and not to outshine them. And I really found that it worked for me as I went through my career, because they supported me because they didn't feel threatened by me.
And your time will come.
Yes, and your time will come, and they will support you because they know that you're the one who supported them. So yeah, so I think those are, so I do read a lot when I can.
Wow, Clara, this has been very inspirational in so many respects, and I'm grateful that you've created time within your busy schedule to accommodate this conversation. So thank you so much. This will inspire a lot of young people for generations to come. So thank you so much. Allow me, Clara, to turn to our viewers who are in Zimbabwe, who are on the continent in the diaspora, who follow this show rather every time. And to remind you that we are a weekly show. We come out every Monday at 7 a.m. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these shows, I invite you to click onto this red button here, and you get an alert every time we have one of these quality conversations. So until next time, cheers to you all.